Hello and welcome back to Subtly Interested. My name is Riley, and I'm here to talk about my new and quite frankly, not so subtle interest. I've always been a fan of sports and I've always enjoyed watching and playing sports. And I mean, there are sports that I don't particularly like or enjoy watching or playing, but there's always been two primary sports that have always kept my interest. One of those being football, American football, and the other one being soccer or football. I've been a fan of the NFL since I was a kid. From a very young age, I was indoctrinated to be a Pittsburgh Steelers fan because my mom's side of the family is from Pennsylvania. So ever since I can remember, I was a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, and I still am to this day. I still watch them when I can, and I root for them. I'm a typical fan. I'm not a crazy super fan. My uncle is, but I am not. And lately, the NFL has become kind of abysmal. Games are getting boring to watch. There's not as much hype. The stakes seem so low, and it's just not what it used to be. It feels like the NFL has taken physicality out of the game, and that's what made the NFL so, I don't want to say special, but it's just not as entertaining. I haven't fallen out of love with football by any means, but I have been looking for something new to follow, and that thing is football, or soccer, as my fellow Americans would call it. And I am a man of several frequent and aggressive hyperfixations. I get these random subtle interests and I just commit to them immediately and so aggressively. And I don't know what I was doing. I was just sitting at my desk and I was like, what if I just start following soccer? Like, how random is that? So quirky, To give you a little bit of background, the very first sport that I ever played, organized sport, like on a team, was soccer. And I think I played a couple of years of soccer, and then my parents put me in flag football because my family was just more of a football family. By the way, when I'm doing these comparisons, I'm just gonna make American football, and football as soccer, just so I don't confuse you or myself. Anyway, I went from soccer to flag football as a kid, and then I played tackle football when I was in 7th and 8th grade, and then played in high school as well. And I didn't play soccer again until my junior year of high school, and it was so fun. To this day, I regret not having played it my freshman and sophomore years, or even just like more before that. But even though I played it, I never followed it. I never knew, I knew about the MLS. My neighbors were really big Galaxy fans, so I knew of the MLS, but I just thought that was like soccer. I thought that soccer was MLS. I had FIFA 14, I think, and I knew that the only football teams I knew were Galaxy, FC Barcelona, Real Madrid, and Bayern Munich, because those were like the best teams that you could play. I mean, not Galaxy necessarily, but Real Madrid, Barcelona, and Bayern Munich were like the best teams you could play as in that game, if I remember correctly. And my brother and I would always play against each other as Real Madrid and Barcelona, and we would fight over who would be Ronaldo and Messi. But that's like as far as my football knowledge. Soccer, oh my gosh, it's getting so confusing. That's as far as my knowledge of soccer went. And I mean, I did pay attention to the World Cup whenever it came on, because my dad is not a big soccer fan, but whenever the World Cup was on or the Olympics or something, we would always throw it on just because it was fun to watch the international teams compete. But yeah, that was pretty much it. And so one day I'm sitting at my computer and I'm just thinking, like, what if I got into soccer? I was like, I don't know. It seems like kind of a commitment. And now being an adult, I know that it's the most popular and played sport in the world. And I was like, okay, there's got to be a reason for that. So I began researching. It officially turned into a hyperfixation, and I started researching everything about soccer. Okay, now I'm going to call it football. I'm going to call it football now because it's going to get really confusing. So I started researching everything about football, how it started, where it came from, the different teams, the different leagues, who are the best, who are the worst, what is relegation. My wife and I watched Ted Lasso. Great show, recommend it. It actually taught me quite a bit about football because it was basically me as an American, only knowing about American football, to going into the world of soccer, football, and I kind of resonated with that a little bit. It's kind of corny, but it's true. And so as I dug deeper into everything, I was like, all right, I think I'm going to do this. I think I'm going to dive in. And what that called for was I needed to pick a team. Originally, when I thought maybe if I do get into this and I do pick a team, I'm probably going to pick someone in the Bundesliga because it's a German league and my heritage is from Germany and I speak a little bit of German. So I'm like, I'm going to take a German team. So I'd kind of known of Bayern Munich, but I didn't really know anything about anything. And then I saw Dortmund and I was like, oh, they're black and yellow like the Steelers. That would be cool to have two teams of the same color scheme, you know. But then I didn't make a decision because then I heard of something called the Premier League, and that was a rabbit hole. I probably spent a good week just like researching the teams, the history of the Premier League, how it works. The Premier League piqued my interest. Here's the thing. From all my research that I did on football, the one thing that I kept noticing was the stakes are so high and every game is so important. It's just the fact that there were no playoffs blew my mind. I think it's actually, it ends up being so smart because in the NFL, there could be a really bad team that somehow makes it to the playoffs. And then like on a fluke or because of an injury or a crazy just Hail Mary play, they can end up winning the Super Bowl. Whereas in football and in the Premier League, every game is crucial, you know? For people that are familiar with the Premier League, you know what I'm talking about, but for those that aren't, points are accumulated throughout the year, and at the end of the year, whoever has the most points wins the Premier League. It's 3 points for a win, 1 point for a draw, and no points if you lose. So you really have to perform all year and like do well all year or all season in order to be crowned as the best in the Premier League. That to me was very attractive because like the stakes for me is, for some reason, the stakes are so important. So I'm thinking, man, this sounds fun. So I was like, I think I'm going to choose a Premier League team. But I remember from my research into the Bundesliga and Dortmund, you know, because they're the same colors as Steelers, I was like looking at highlights and stuff. And there was this one guy that was like crazy to me. Like he was just like doing things that I was like, as someone that hasn't watched a lot of football, I was like, that's impressive. I don't know why, but that's impressive. And so his name is Erling Haaland.
But they weren't prepared for Erling Haaland. I'm repeating over and over again. City 3, United.
He's known as, you know, Baby Thor, the Viking. He's him. For those that don't know me, I'm very Viking centric. It's another one of my hyper fixations that hasn't gone away. So when I see the guy that's like nicknamed the Viking and 23 years old, and he's probably gonna be playing for a long time, and I wanted just someone that was like good to follow, you know, that I could like, wasn't gonna be someone that was about to retire or he was washed up or whatever. And so I was like, oh, this guy's cool. And I saw him in the Dortmund highlights. So I was like, oh, then I'll be a Dortmund fan. So I look up Erling, you know, I do more research into Erling Haaland, and then I realized that he has switched teams. So I'm like, I guess I'll follow him. And where did he go? Manchester City. Now, when I first saw Manchester City, I didn't realize the gravity of choosing them as my team right now. In 2023, I was watching this YouTube video. I actually ended up watching a lot of YouTube videos from the Fat Asian. He's an American football fan, and he has a lot of really cool videos. I definitely recommend you go check him out. He had a video right before this season started of like predictions and stuff like that, like explaining the teams if like you're an American new to football. And he likened choosing Manchester City as your team to liking the Golden State Warriors when they signed Kevin Durant. I'm not even a huge basketball fan, but even I was like, oh, it's like that. And I'll be honest, the Pittsburgh Steelers, though I love them, for the past few years haven't done super well. And I was just kind of tired of my team being average. I saw that and I was like, yeah, I want a good team. So shamelessly, I've chosen Manchester City to be my football team. Someone watching this in the UK or just like has been a football fan for a long time and sees an American just choosing Manchester City because they're good, I can understand why you'd be like, oh, you know, I get it. Trust me. Especially now that I've been watching matches and like really diving into the Premier League and the culture and all that kind of stuff. I totally get it. But I would like to put the disclaimer out that I came here. I ended up choosing Manchester City because I like Erling Haaland. If Erling Haaland was still in Dortmund, I'd be a Dortmund fan. But I followed him to Man City. And I understand why people like are so icky about Man City fans. Like, oh, like you're just here because, you know, the owners are rich and they can just buy all the best players and they're the best team, so you want to, you know, bandwagon. And I get that. But I genuinely, like, that's not the way that I'm thinking about it. I like them because I came for Erling Haaland, and they just so happen to be the best team in the league right now. So I can't complain about that. I actually, it's funny because I made a rule for myself that at least 2 months had to go by before I started saying we. Like, because like when I talk about the series, like, oh yeah, I don't think we're gonna go to the playoffs this year, or, you know, yeah, we did lose, or yeah, we won. I didn't think that I had earned the right to say we until I realized that this like wasn't just like a quick, you know, like hyperfixation, and that I was gonna get bored of it. But I've been like watching matches. I like, you know, watch all the commentary. You know, I'm following other teams like too. Like I'm paying attention to everyone and not just Man City. So that was kind of the indicator for me of like, okay, yeah, you're in and out. So now I'm gonna say we as in Manchester City. I know I'm not part of the team. I know some people are iffy about using the term we when it comes to sports teams, but here we are. Currently it is November 11th and we're sitting at the top of the table, and we are going to make a fine run at the title this year. I'm sure of it. But yeah, is this going to become a football channel? No idea. Probably not. But it is one of my interests. I figured I'd give you an update and see where this leads. And if, you know, if there are any recent football fans from America, feel free to discuss in the comments below who you chose as your team and why. I'm curious, especially for like Americans following football. It's kind of like a weird thing here. It's like so not popular. I mean, Messi just came here, and it's like kind of building like a little bit of hype. We're gonna have the World Cup, so I don't know. It's gonna be interesting, but you know, I'm here. I'm officially a football fan. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you in the next video, and go City.